I'm 54 years old and I have never in my life done anything impulsive. I raised 3 kids. I taught middle school for 22 years. I organized the church bake sale 17 years in a row. I am the person who double-checks the stove before leaving the house. But last March, I sat alone at my kitchen table at 2 in the morning with a glass of Merlot and a stack of bank statements I wasn't supposed to see, and I made a decision that changed everything. Quietly. Efficiently. And without a single regret. I want to tell you this story because I think a lot of you will recognize something in it. Not the details, the feeling. That slow, creeping suspicion that the life you built with someone might be sitting on top of something rotten. And because I need you to understand who I was before I understood what was actually happening. My name is Linda. That feels important to say out loud, because for about 6 years of my marriage, I kind of forgot it. I married Roger in 1996. He was charming in that quiet, reliable way, not flashy, not the kind of guy who walks into a room and commands attention. He was steady. He fixed things when they broke. He remembered my mother's birthday. We had a good life. 2 daughters, 1 son. A house in suburban Ohio that we refinished the floors in together on a long Labor Day weekend. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what a real partnership looks like. He worked in commercial real estate. I taught 6th grade English. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We took the kids to Disney World twice. We had a timeshare in Myrtle Beach that we complained about but secretly loved. In 2015, our youngest graduated high school and I went back to working full-time after years of part-time. I felt good. I felt like myself again, like Linda, not just Mom or Mrs. Hartwell. And Roger. Roger started working late. Not dramatically. Not suspiciously at first. Just, more. A dinner here, a conference there. He traveled more for work. He was tired when he came home. We had less to say to each other. I figured that was just what happened after 20 years. Everyone said that happened. I thought I was being mature about it. I was being naive about it. The first thing that struck me as strange wasn't another woman. It was a password. Roger had always used the same password for everything, our anniversary date. 08171996. I know, terrible security. But that was Roger. Sentimental, predictable Roger. In 2018, he changed all his passwords. Just, all of them. At once. I noticed because I tried to log into our shared Amazon account and got locked out. When I mentioned it, he said he'd gotten a phishing email and his work IT department told everyone to update their credentials. That was totally reasonable. I filed it away and didn't think about it again. Then, about 8 months later, I went to make a dentist appointment and couldn't find the insurance card in his wallet because he'd left it on the counter. I opened it, his wallet, and there was a second Visa card. Not from our bank. From a bank I'd never heard of. A small regional bank in Tennessee. We don't live in Tennessee. We have never lived in Tennessee. We don't have family in Tennessee. I put the wallet back. I told myself there was an explanation. Maybe it was an old card. Maybe it was from a work account. Maybe I was being paranoid. I was being paranoid. Just not wrong. Then one Sunday afternoon while Roger was out golfing, I was cleaning out the hall closet, just reorganizing, the way you do in spring, and I found a prepaid cell phone in a shoebox behind his old bowling bag. I held it in my hands for a full minute. It was dead. Completely dead. I couldn't turn it on. I put it back exactly where I found it, went into the kitchen, and made a pot of coffee I didn't drink. I didn't say anything to Roger that night. Or the next night. Or for 3 weeks. But something had shifted. Some quiet, invisible switch had been thrown. I started paying attention differently. Here's the thing nobody tells you about suspecting your husband: it doesn't make you angry right away. It makes you methodical. I started keeping a notebook. Not like a dramatic diary, just a small spiral notebook I kept in my work bag, where I wrote down things I noticed. Dates. Times. Little inconsistencies. I felt insane doing it. I also felt like it was the most rational thing I'd ever done. The Tennessee bank card started appearing more often. I saw it in his wallet twice more over the following year, which meant it was active. I wrote down the last 4 digits from the card. He went to a conference in Nashville in October 2019. I'd never heard him mention Nashville before as a market he worked in. I looked up the conference he said he was attending. It was real. It existed. He was even on the attendee list. I found that on LinkedIn. But he stayed 4 extra days. I didn't say anything. I told myself maybe he was doing deals. Touring properties. That was reasonable. That was possible. What was less reasonable, when he came back, he was happy. Not tired from travel happy. Not relieved to be home happy. He was glowing. He made dinner. He bought me flowers, not for any occasion, just because. He was attentive and warm and present in a way he hadn't been in years. And God help me, part of me loved it. Part of me just accepted the flowers and the dinners and didn't ask any questions. I wrote in my notebook, he came back different. Better. Don't understand it. And then COVID hit and everything froze and my suspicions went into a kind of hibernation while we just tried to survive, like everyone else. Roger worked from home. He was there, physically present, every single day. I watched him like a hawk without meaning to. I didn't find anything. I started to wonder if I'd been building something out of nothing. Maybe the notebook was embarrassing evidence of my own anxiety, not his guilt. By summer of 2021, I almost believed that. Almost. It was my sister Carol who said it first. We were having lunch, just the 2 of us, a long overdue lunch at this little Italian place she loves, and she mentioned, offhandedly, that she'd run into Roger's old college friend Dan at the hardware store. He asked about Roger, she said. He seemed surprised Roger was still in Ohio. I said, why would he be surprised about that? Carol shrugged. He said something like, oh, I thought he'd moved south. Weird, right? I told him Roger still lived here with you and the kids and he got this look on his face, like. She trailed off and stirred her pasta. Like what? Like he'd said something he shouldn't have. I went home and sat with that for days. Moved south. I went back to the Tennessee bank card. I'd written down the last 4 digits. I knew the bank name. I went online and found their customer service number. I called, said I was Roger Hartwell, that I was trying to access an account and couldn't remember the full account number, and asked if they could confirm whether an account existed under that name. The woman on the phone confirmed, without giving me any details, that yes, an account existed under that name, and asked if I'd like to verify my identity through their security questions. I hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a Kroger and stared at my hands on the steering wheel. There was a bank account in Tennessee. In my husband's name. An account that had existed long enough to still be open after at least 3 years of me knowing about the card. I drove home. I made dinner. I sat across the table from Roger and watched him eat his chicken and tell me about a property he was listing, and I thought, you are going to find out what is happening. And you are going to do it on your own terms. I hired a private investigator in January 2022. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like a Lifetime movie. I was a 52-year-old English teacher from suburban Ohio, and I found a private investigator on Google and called him on my lunch break, parked behind the school gym, and my hands were shaking so hard I misdialed twice. His name was Phil. He was retired law enforcement. He was expensive. He was worth every penny. It took Phil 6 weeks. Her name was Brenda. She was 48. She lived in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, about 30 minutes outside Nashville. She had a house, a nice house, a house Roger had helped her purchase, would later learn, using money from a joint account I didn't know existed. She had a daughter. The daughter was 16 years old. Her name was Kylie. She had Roger's nose. She had his exact chin. She was born in 2005. We had been married for 9 years. Phil sent me a PDF with photos, records, everything. Property records, the joint account, school enrollment documents. I opened it on a Tuesday evening while Roger was at his weekly poker game. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat down at the kitchen table, and read every single page. I did not cry. I want to be clear about that. I didn't cry that night. I think I was in some kind of shock that my body cleverly disguised as calm. What I felt, and I remember this precisely, was a strange, cold clarity. Like when you've been looking at something blurry for years and somebody finally hands you the right prescription glasses. Everything just snapped into focus. All of it. Every late trip to Nashville. Every extra day. The flowers he brought home after being with her. The year he was glowing. The password change. The shoebox phone. The look on his college friend Dan's face. 26 years of my life. And then I thought of something else. Something I almost missed in the financial documents. Something Phil had almost flagged as unimportant. My mother had passed away in 2019. She left me an inheritance, not life-changing money, but meaningful money. About $340,000 from the sale of her house plus savings. I had asked Roger to manage the investment of it because he was good with money. I had trusted him with my mother's legacy because he was my husband and I trusted him. I flipped to the back pages of Phil's report. That money was gone. Not invested. Not grown. Gone. Moved, over 3 years, in careful increments that never triggered an automatic bank alert, into accounts I had no access to. Some of it had gone to Brenda's house. The money my mother left me helped buy his other family a home. I sat at that kitchen table until 2 in the morning. Then I opened my laptop and I started making some calls. I want to be honest about something. My first instinct was not to scream at him. My first instinct was to protect myself. I think that surprised me. Maybe it was the teacher brain, the part that always has a plan, always thinks 3 steps ahead before engaging. I didn't call my daughters. I didn't call Carol. I called my attorney. Her name is Margaret. I've used her for small things over the years, a property contract, a will update. I called her at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday and she picked up. I said, I need you to clear your schedule. We spent 2 weeks, quietly, legally, systematically moving. I separated the joint finances. I documented everything Phil had given me. I consulted with a forensic accountant about the missing inheritance money. I moved into the guest room and told Roger it was because of my terrible insomnia, which I delivered so calmly that he said, Linz, you should have said something sooner. He went back to his phone. He had no idea. Margaret filed for divorce on a Thursday morning. Roger was served at his office at 11 a.m. He called me 6 times between 11 and noon. I didn't answer. The 7th call, I answered. He said, Linda, what is this, what is happening? I said, Roger, I know about Brenda. I know about Kylie. I know about Murfreesboro. And I know about my mother's money. Silence. Long, deep, absolute silence. And then, in a voice I had never heard from him before, small and cracked, how long have you known? Long enough, I said. I hung up. The divorce took 14 months. It was brutal in the legal sense, forensic accounting, depositions, his lawyers trying to argue that the transferred funds were joint marital assets invested in a property that held value. Margaret dismantled that argument piece by piece with the patience of someone who has genuinely seen everything. The court ordered Roger to repay me the full $340,000 plus interest, classified as dissipation of marital assets, which is the legal term for when a spouse uses marital funds for an affair. In Ohio, that's taken very seriously. He also lost the Myrtle Beach timeshare, which I know sounds petty, but I want to acknowledge, it's not nothing. I'm not going to tell you I feel completely fine about all of it. I spent 26 years with this man. I raised children with him. We refinished floors together on a Labor Day weekend, and I thought it meant something. Some days that grief just sits on my chest like a physical weight. But I also want to tell you something else. Something I didn't expect. I retired from teaching last June. 29 years. The kids in my last class gave me a card signed by everyone in the school, over 400 students. I stood in the gym while they sang some terrible song they'd written for me, and I cried in a way I hadn't cried about any of this. Ugly, grateful tears. I bought a small house. Just mine. A 1,400 square foot craftsman bungalow with a front porch and a yard I'm still figuring out. My daughter Hannah helped me pick the paint colors. We spent an entire weekend arguing about whether agreeable gray is actually gray or actually beige. It's beige. I let her win that argument. I've started traveling. Solo travel, which I was terrified of for the first 8 months, and now I am completely and embarrassingly evangelical about. I went to Portugal in April. I went to New Mexico in August and hiked for the first time in my life at 54 years old with lungs that apparently still work. Roger and Brenda are apparently not together anymore. I heard this third hand and felt approximately nothing. The thing people keep asking me is, "Are you okay?" And here's the most honest answer I have. I'm better than okay in ways I don't have the vocabulary for yet. But I'm also changed in ways that don't entirely feel like growth. Some of that trust one used to have in my own instincts, the easy, unexamined confidence that the people I loved were who I thought they were, that's just gone. It doesn't come back. You just learn to carry the absence of it more comfortably. Some nights I drive to get ice cream by myself at 9 p.m. because I can. That's not nothing either. What I keep thinking about is the notebook. That small spiral notebook where I wrote down dates and license plates and inconsistencies, feeling like a lunatic. It turned out I wasn't being paranoid. I was paying attention. And there is something to be said for a woman who, in the middle of her very ordinary life, decides to stop explaining away the things that don't add up. I deserve to know the truth about my own life. Every woman does. The truth is expensive. It costs something real. But it is yours. And I would rather have the expensive truth than the comfortable lie. Every single time. If this story hit close to home, if you recognized something in it, or if you've carried your own version of that notebook for years, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment. Tell me your story, or just tell me I'm not alone in this. It matters more than you know. And if you're new here, please subscribe. I share these stories because they need to be told, and because the women living them deserve to know they're seen. Share this with someone who needs it. You probably know exactly who that is.